Hello everyone, my name is Piers Ridyard. We have another roundtable for you with Russell and Matt. This one is about the Radix Wallet and what makes the Radix Wallet awesome. So Matt, let's start off with, what is the Radix Wallet?
Wallets in general in crypto, the most essential distilled down notion of a wallet is it's a thing that manages your access to accounts. This is where it started. It's like, and in fact, the traditional notion of it is it's the repository for a private key.
Right.
It holds a private key that you can use to sign stuff for your account. We have expanded that quite a bit. Basically, what we see this as the wallet as it is a thing that handles the control and access to your things. And we've expanded the notion of this. We have the multi-factor signing and recovery features, and so the wallet becomes your front end to those features. We also have our persona-based logins, so the wallet becomes your front end to being able to do logins that way, and managing all the various keys and methods we use to interact with those things. And then layered on top of that as well, when we do have persona logins, we have this idea of data that you can associate with personas and selectively share that information. So it also becomes sort of a manager of this personal information. So we've expanded the
So it's like an application. I mean, the Radix Wallet specifically, the Babylon Wallet is a mobile application, right?
Correct.
Has the ability of connecting on desktop as well, but it's a mobile application.
Right.
And it's kind of this secure place for holding all of your Web3 identities and all of your Web3 assets and all of your DeFi assets, as well as the things that allow you to control things on Ledger and in those environments as well.
Right. I like to think of it as, when you're interacting with the wild world of Web3 and you're doing things out there, the wallet is the thing you're always going to come back to. It's the thing that you own, is looking out for your interests. It holds all of your stuff. It manages how you connect to things, and it shows you transaction manifests and protects you, makes sure it can see what you need to know. It's always the thing that you can trust that represents you.
Right. It's sort of like, I mean, you often think about it, you often talk about it like the wallet that you hold in your pocket.
Right.
I mean, it's a lot more than that as well, but I sort of think of it as like my safe personal space where I keep the things that are important to me, whether it is not personal data or it's the assets that are important to me, or like anything that I need to interact with that's uniquely mine.
Mm-hmm. That's exactly right. Yeah.
Right. Okay. And I think that you've also done some extra things in that as well, where you're leveraging things about the phone. You're leveraging things like the biometrics on the phone. You're leveraging things like the NFC capabilities.
Right. This gets into some of the reasons of why a mobile first wallet. The typical thing today is the old school crypto wallet is you have either a desktop or a mobile application that's it's just something that's holding your tokens. Very, very simple. And then MetaMask came along and upended that. And we realized that, actually, the important thing is being able to connect your stuff to applications.
Right.
And so the most direct way of doing that was, we're connecting to web pages, so we'll do a web browser extension.
Right.
And you'll hold your tokens, and you'll hold your keys in that rather than this other thing. And then that opened up all sorts of security problems. So people that are sensible use hardware wallets with this, but a lot of people they don't realize they're too lazy, and so they've got these private keys hanging out in a web browser extension, which is insane.
I'm guilty of that sometimes, for sure.
Yeah, I've done it too.
It's just like,
everybody does it.
Like, you got to get the ledger. Oh,
Convenience trumps security all too frequently.
Which is the best example of people that know what they're doing here. We have the full technical understanding, and yet it's like, but I'm lazy.
Yeah.
I'll do that later.
Yeah, when it's my personal stuff, I just can't. I just want it to be secure by default. I don't want to have to do all of these extra steps.
Right. So we made this decision to make the Radix Wallet this very mobile-focused thing because our community is constantly asking for when mobile wallet. But the important thing is it isn't just that we're offering a mobile, it's a mobile-only wallet. And that's an important point because as it turns out, mobile phones that we have today are these really useful security devices.
Right.
Everybody has one, and basically, I forget the statistic, but it's like high 90s percentage of phones has some form of really good, strong biometrics built into it. And so it's actually quite a generally secure device that can hold a key. Now, of course, no one wants to just fully trust that because it's also a device that's very easy to lose.
Right.
But the great thing is if you're going to have the single device that's going to be sort of like the main thing that I'm using to interact with stuff, you've always got it with you. It's a very capable device that can hold private keys, and we can build mechanisms that can connect that to web pages and NFC readers and all that sort of stuff. It's a device that's intended to be connected.
Yes.
It's always connected to the internet.
Yeah.
It has all these different sensors.
Yeah.
So why not make that really the focus? You'll see when you're onboarding into the Radix Wallet for the first time that the very simple notion that we put into people's head is your phone is your login. Your phone is the thing you're always going to be using to, like, the first thing you do is connect with this, and the phone will show you what you need to know and take care of it for you.
Yeah.
But the smart account features allows us to do that in a way that's secure, so that if you do lose your phone, it's not a bad idea.
Right, and we're definitely going to talk about particularly Desktop Connect as well, because I
Sure.
think what I don't want people, even at the start of this, to take away the idea that it really is a mobile phone only experience and that everything else is kind of like a crappy secondary experience, which isn't the case at all. Like the whole thesis of this was, as I understand it, this has to be a multi-platform experience where the same set of assets, identities, logins can be on many devices, but in a way that's as secure as you possibly can.
Right.
And so, like, it's all of those parameters where the things that you carry with you at all times are also the things that create security, but you aren't limited to only interact with the things you care about on those devices on their own. Like, I think that there's like this really big, and it goes down to this idea of, you know, again, if your public-private key pair is your login, is your interaction, then of course you can only have that on one device, or you have to do this really like difficult thing where you get your seed phrase, you write it down, you then back it up via a different seed phrase on another device, and then there's like that seed phrase is in multi places, and it suddenly feels less secure, and all this kind of stuff.
And even then, if you do that, you know, your seed phrase isn't everything about you. You want something that understands your preferences.
Right.
And, you know, just even silly things like, what names do you want to put in your accounts? Well, if I set it up on one device and then recover it with a seed phrase another device, it doesn't know about any of that stuff. So you don't have a cohesive user experience.
Right. So that's what the Radix Wallet is, which sounds pretty awesome. So, I mean, it'd be good just to start with, you know, what were the guiding principles behind the development of the Babylon wallet?
Sure. We had, I'd say there were four that were the let's just start with one. Now you look skeptical that there were four. Let's start with the big one, which is it had to be safe.
Right.
And it had to feel safe.
Right.
And feel safe is really, really important. It's more important than people realize, because we're crypto folk, right? We're crazy risk takers. We tolerate an unbelievable amount of risk. If you're going to go mainstream, you have folks that are used to dealing with traditional finance. When things go wrong, so the bank gets its wires crossed and your account has less. It's really good about giving you a route to, I can get my money back, right?
Right.
It may not just take a phone call. You may have to produce some documents. You may have to pay for a lawyer, but there is this lovely system to eventually make you whole again,
right?
Because there is this authority that can do that. In the decentralized world, of course, that authority by design does not exist.
Right.
And we can say, well, maybe in the future there'll be some large enough insurance entity that can cover that. And I think there will be one day for this, but we're not there yet.
Right.
So if I'm going to go mainstream with the Radix wallet, I can't give you here's your route to make you whole in the event something went wrong. But they have this expectation of my safety must be at least at this. There's a bar there, right? And it has to feel like you've met that bar. So we said to feel safe, since we can't have this undo button that exists in traditional finance, we have to make it so it's completely predictable. There can be no surprises.
Right.
It has to be, I am understanding what is about to happen if I approve this, and once I approve it, exactly that thing happened. I was in no way surprised by the outcome of that.
Right.
And if I have that, I now certainly I'm much more okay to live without the undo button. Right. There is still a gulf, a chasm to be crossed with people to go, wait, there's no one I can call to get this money back if something goes wrong. That's correct.
Right.
Ultimately, you must accept some more responsibility. But let's not go the crazy extent we do now in crypto. It's something like, okay, make sure you pay attention before you sign things. Right? As long as you can do that, you'll get what you expected.
It's really important. It's like the flip side of the coin of saying, DeFi, the essential thing about DeFi is giving people back control.
Right.
And if you're going to give people back control, you have to, it's like you said, no surprises. It's such a great way of thinking about it, because people need to make sure that when they have that control, you aren't removing their ability to understand. if you're sort of saying like, you're in full control, but you don't actually have enough, like you're gonna, if you actually really want to know what's going to happen, you have to audit smart contracts or do things like that. Like you haven't actually solved the problem. You need to have, people need to understand, I have control and I know what I'm doing and I know what's happening at every step of the process so that I'm willing to take that control. Because people, what we've seen over and over again is people will give up control for the sake of usability, for understandability and so forth. They're just gonna go, I can't be bothered. I'll just log in with Facebook, whatever.
It's like, be your own bank. And then you're like, I don't,
it's a lot of work to be my own bank.
Be my own bank anymore. It's scary and difficult.
So that philosophy of no surprises is so core to like the entire user experience in the wallet.
And recovery, of course, is a huge part of safety.
Right.
You can lose your phone. It's okay.
Right.
You know, your money's not gone. And depending on how
much. Well, you can lose your phone anyway in crypto right now, but you also have to have backed up your seed phrase.
You have to have taken this.
You have to have taken this extra step. Right. And the number of applications I have on my own phone where I go into them and there's the warning at the top is like, you haven't backed up your seed phrases. I'm like,
well, next time I shall do that. I'm in a big rush right now.
Right? I'm like,
so we make it so the wallet, it had to be brain dead simple to get to recoverable mode. Like even if you say, I'll do this later, let's at least get you set up with the really simple set of rules that is better than nothing.
Right.
And later, if you want to come back and make it quite elaborate, like, hey, I've got a lot of money parked in here and I want to have more than a single recovery point, you can set all that stuff up later. It's all a configurable thing. So it's okay. You don't have to make this irrevocable decision at the start on how you're going to secure things.
Right.
It's like the seed phrase where, okay, I'm going to be good. I'm going to get my 3 titanium plates and put them in 3 bank accounts and one goes underneath the ocean because nobody will dive for my, all that kind of stuff. We can just make it where, look, just keep pressing next on this, answer a few questions, and you're at least recoverable. And if you later want to get more elaborate, by all means, in your own time, do so.
Right. Right, and I think it's all about this gradation as well, right? It's the gradation and how easy it is to add more layers of security and making those layers super easy to add, right? Like if I just want someone to be my recovery factor, like how quick and easy that is to do that.
And to change, if you've had a falling out with that person or something,
right?
You can do that.
And so those are the first 2.
That was 1. We're still on 1.
More safe and recovery.
No. This is all recovery as part of safety.
Still more safety. Okay.
2.
Yes.
2 is it had to be available everywhere, which of course was a big part of mobile first. Was look, it's got to be on the phone, which we've talked about. I mean, we get so many benefits from that, which of course then came with the key. Yes, but I, like many other people, I like my desktop browser. Right. I'm an old guy. I very rarely open my phone browser for anything.
I do all my DeFi on desktop.
And certainly financial stuff, I want the big browser, which led us to then, well, we've got to have a perfect connection. It's got to just fade away between your desktop browser and your phone. Right. And that led us to a whole bunch of interesting research on this, because this is not a new concept that I'm going to have a connection to my phone. Right. But it's hard to do well, right? It's really easy to say, oh, I'll just make a centralized server that relays everything.
Yeah. Which is what Wallet Connect is.
Right.
I don't know that people actually realize that.
Right. And even with that, has it ever worked for you?
No, Wallet Connect is awful. Like the number of times I've been like, connect, and it's like, no. Yeah. And like that's on a centralized server. Right. Yeah. Like it should work better, and it doesn't. And
So we had many. This was an area of intense research, and the thing, after a lot of prototyping and thinking, we said, look, we can't have this centralized message passing or anything like that. That's not good enough for forever. Right. We landed on there's a technology called WebRTC that basically facilitates setting up these direct peer-to-peer connections between things. This is what's used by Google Meet and Skype and WhatsApp video. Like a lot of teleconferencing uses this. It's very well tested. It's a bit tough to get your head around from implementation, but what we've really found is in any network configuration that we dog food, it's not that we're saying, oh, your phone's got to be sitting on the same network as your computer. It always just works. It just works, and it fades away to the point that you don't even think about it anymore in test, which is exactly what we wanted. Right. But at some point I had this realization of, it never says it didn't work. It always works no matter where I am. It always just happened, which is exactly what we wanted.
Yeah, and like WebRTC's got all of these layers in it as well, right? It's like if you're on the same network, it will do one thing. If you're on different networks, it'll do another thing. If you're on the internet, it'll do another thing.
It's a cool piece of tech.
It's a really cool piece of tech.
Yeah.
And like it's great that we've been able to introduce it into this and then maintain the decentralization of the way in which Wallet Connect works as well, whereas in Radix Connect. Okay, so that's 2.
3 is this absolutely has to be intuitive. And what I mean by that, and this is one that we had a lot of gesticulation in our offsite about this, is this practical to try to achieve, which is if you go to use Instagram, you download this and you just start using it.
Right.
Nobody goes, hey friend, can you explain to me how to use Instagram, or let me go read 3 medium.com articles so I understand how to use Instagram.
Right.
Now, this stuff is more complicated than Instagram. But we certainly said, look, I think we can achieve this. And if we don't, we can certainly get very, very close. We can get a lot closer than anything else in crypto is right now. And so this led to a ton of work around, one, just nailing the onboarding flow. Like, how do I make sure someone can just install the wallet and get going?
Right, there was a huge amount of user research behind this too.
Tons of testing, which actually caused us to change our account model as a result of this. Basically, we found we had this lovely solution. We were so happy with it.
I didn't like the solution.
And Piers didn't like it, nor did our users, as it turned out in the user testing. So, yeah, that was an unexpected, huge amount of work to get.
I mean, that's the key.
The UX phase was
right?
fascinating because it was like we had this toolbox of things to work with. It's like we've got smart accounts and all the technologies and everything. We're like, we know that it is possible to create something really great out of this.
Right.
Like we'd solved, it's kind of like in the keynote thing. It's sort of like we had these 5 technologies. We knew we needed those, but we needed to stitch them together in a way. And it was so many rounds of user research where there were drastically different versions of the wallet that we tested out with people that changed the order of onboarding, changed sort of how you got to configuration. In the end, it was doing exactly the same thing. We weren't changing the functionality of the wallet concept. It was just, how do we explain it to people? How do we expose it to them? What's the hierarchy of screens?
Right.
And we found out, we got results all the way from, we'd have some form of wallet where a brand new user to crypto was like, oh, this is amazing. This is understandable. I'm very happy with this. Whereas the DeFi degen user was like, this is centralized bullshit. I'm not going to use that. No. And you wanted to jump into the user trial and go, no, it's not centralized. Seriously. But they didn't understand that concept because of the way we'd onboarded them.
Right.
And so we finally, we landed on a structure for the wallet. Oh, wow.
Yeah. Not sure how that happened.
Hopefully that watch is recoverable.
See, if that was a signing factor,
I know,
you would now be going
no
in.
problem. You'd say toss it in the trash.
Right, exactly. Just put another one in. But yeah, we ended up going through rounds of this user research and ended up on something that struck that balance. It led people into this feeling of this is a network and a new way of doing things where you have control.
Right.
But giving them a good mental model of how that control works and making everything such that it's understandable and there are no surprises for them. And that was a surprising amount of work. In fact, even the persona system sort of came out of this. It was something where we were going through user research and we were kind of trying out a couple of ideas about how do we, when you're connecting to a website, what's the flow of that? And we threw in this idea of well, what if you could put a name on, and you basically give a name to the website you're connecting to when you're connecting your accounts. And people jumped on that immediately, across the board. Everyone tested it. It's like, oh, this is cool. I can be somebody else when I connect to a website. And both people that were new to crypto and people that had been in crypto for a while. It's like, oh, this is way better than MetaMask. It's not just my address. It's like I can be RadMat here, or I can be something else over here.
Right.
And we started elaborating that and realizing, no, this was a really fundamental notion. It wasn't just a fun thing.
Right.
And it ended up turning into us sort of splitting the notion of smart accounts and identities.
The thing I love about personas is a thing that you only really start to notice when you have more than one crypto account, right? And when you connect to pages, and all it does is it gives you those 4 digits followed by the 3 digits followed by the 4 digits with the dots in between.
Right.
And you can just go ahead and start doing stuff. And it's only after you've done a transaction, you're like, oh, God, the wrong one,
yeah.
Right? And then splitting out this idea of being able to say, I am this person, and when I'm interacting as this person, I've also got this group of accounts that I care about.
Right.
And so when I go onto a page, it goes, hey, whatever, I want to be called on that page, but it's just that instant mental model. But I think that's really interesting in the testing as well, because the concept of no surprises from the point of view of a user experience when it comes to finance, critical idea, but also no surprises when it comes to user experience from the mental model that the user has from when they interact with it, because breaking that at the wrong point or setting the wrong expectation also sends users into this tailspin that sort of means they come out of the process and they don't complete it.
Right. Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think it almost goes back to your original question of what is the Radix wallet, is that that's its job really. Its job isn't to implement a multi-factor scheme, which is something that's being done in a lot of other places. You see people trying to solve the seed phrase problem with a more clever wallet.
Right.
Our solution to that isn't actually in the wallet, it's in smart accounts.
Right.
So a lot of these problems are more platform level for us. The purpose of the wallet is to solve those usability problems. Right. It's to say, like, we are going to package this in the way that it can deliver no surprises to the user and that it is understandable. It's something, it's really a front end to these very deep platform features that we have. And it's just the fact that, I mean, this is really, wallets have always been that. They've always been a front end to what the platform can do. It's just that we have this much more broad, flexible set of tools at the platform level. And so we had to do a lot more work at the user experience level to really figure out what should it feel like to use Web3 in the future.
Right. And like the majority of the work in the Radix wallet was user experience testing. I know you guys did like about 1.5 years of user experience testing, and I only really came in at the end of that, but I remember doing a sprint with you and a bunch of the team where we weren't actually, the wallet was just part of the sprint, as in it was a user flow necessary for the sprint itself, but it wasn't actually, we weren't testing the wallet anymore.
Right.
But the thing that blew my mind about that is that the thing we were testing was something else, but it was critical that that the user had a wallet, and we had to go from someone not having a wallet to having a wallet. And every single person that we did the user testing with, without fail, got all the way through installing the wallet, getting up and running with the wallet, and connecting the wallet to a thing with 0 errors. It was amazing.
Right. This was a really, because we were basically testing out this DApp idea that we had the wallet would connect to. And people kind of got started the DApp, they got sent off to install the wallet, and it was like, oh yeah, click, yep, I'll do that, fine, come back, connect the wallet. Okay, now let me get back to the app. Right. And they got really, they didn't even talk about the wallet, which is really what we want. Yeah. It's really we want this to be this enabler. It's like, it doesn't stand in the way of onboarding. People understand, okay, that's where my trust is, that's where my stuff is. Right. And now I can focus on the cool app that I'm using. And I don't have to worry, because ultimately, when that thing spits out a transaction, the wallet goes, hey, here's a transaction for the web. You go, oh yeah, I understand what that is. Great.
Yeah, this is my account, this is my persona, this is what I'm doing, I understand that, yeah, that's fine. Like I literally spent 2 hours onboarding my mother-in-law into like how to use wallets just for this one thing that she wanted to do. And like you compress that from 2 hours of me sat next to her, like explaining everything, to 5 minutes of no questions.
Right, and you always find yourself going into theory. It's sort of like, why am I seeing this screen? Well, on crypto, there is this notion of, you end up sort of, like training them in how to build a DLT before they can understand the wallet.
Right, it's like, this is what a private key is. This is why you have to keep it safe, and like just gone. Like all of that just gone. It is so difficult to explain how game changing I think that's going to be for so many things.
And for the entrepreneur or the developer, you don't have to educate this whole user base on how to eat that double onboarding problem framed another way on that one. It's really easy for you to get on the platform.
It should just be an easy thing where you integrated the Radix wallet, and if they don't have one, they go, oh, they click that button, they run off, they get the wallet, they come back, and now they're using your app.
Right. Just insane. So obviously this is a great user onboarding, developer tool, entrepreneur tool. Like, are we going to see more of these kind of wallets appear on other ledgers?
You're skipping point 4, man.
Oh yeah.
Point 4.
Point 4.
Let's wrap it up. Which was we were looking to make sure that the user truly understands what you own. Make your stuff really be your stuff, and understand your stuff that's in your wallet. I mean, anybody who has interacted with, like, if you've gotten an LP token from provider to a Uniswap pool, for example, you know that really looks like nothing in your wallet. It's like, okay, you have some balance at this address. What does that mean? You're gonna have to go to some website and know which one it was. And eventually you can kind of unwind the stack and go, okay, this is an LP token for this. And maybe you can find out how much it would be worth if you cashed it in. All those things the wallet should be able to tell you that.
Right.
And so it's coming up with, part of it is just the way our native assets work. Part of it is in the ability to put metadata on things, where you can say you can provide additional information as the person who releases the asset. And part of it is doing things like natively understanding what is an LP token. Well, it's a share of this pool somewhere. And the wallet can go, I recognize that thing. I see that it's related to this application. That's got a nice friendly name to it. And if you turned it in right now, you would get 2,000 XRD and 100 bananas. Right? It could tell you all that right in the wallet. NFTs, the non-fungible token, which right now in many cases people think of as just, oh, it's part of collectible art. Right? There are many, many other useful scenarios, many of which will become much more obvious to folks with Babylon coming up. Right. But for example, if it is associated with a piece of art, that's something that you could see right in your wallet. You have to go to a website and say, what is this? If you have a user identity badge somewhere, you can say, this is an identity badge for the following app. It has the following information on it.
We got to talk about the first part of what you said there about, part of it is being able to look at the behavior of the native asset, because this is a really important thing for, like, again, no surprises. It's the idea that, we have this, people say, well, their initial vision of this is that, well, native assets mean that you'll only be able to do a few things with these. But then, but hey, there's a million types of tokens out there. How are you guys going to do that? This feels very constraining. Once they actually get into it, they realize it's not constraining at all. We've found that you can actually get to some of these concepts even faster and in a more sort of transparent way. Like, for example, there are situations in which you need to be able to recall a token. It might be that you have something where, imagine you have like a game, a Web3 game, where it's like, oh, the game says, great, you've got this object, but then if if your round goes badly or when you're playing the game, it needs to be able to pull that thing back from you. There's a valid business case for that. But you shouldn't have to build a whole special new ERC20 standard or whatever, or ERC standard for this to be able to implement that kind of thing. So this gets into how the native assets work, where there are only certain things that an asset can do, and one of those things is how, what are the rules associated with it moving out of an account? And what the wallet can do is read some of those configurations. It can say, this is a token that is possible. When you look at the token info, you'll be able to see right there, this is a token where someone other than you has the ability of pulling this out of your account. And to do that, they will have to produce a certain badge. And that badge might be controlled by a component or doing something else that makes all that stuff possible. But I can see in the wallet immediately, like, this is a recallable badge. Right. This is a badge, or this is a recallable token where this can happen. Right. Or I can see all the alternative. I can look at the token. It can guarantee me it is impossible for anyone to ever pull this out of your account. Right. Obviously, many, many tokens will fall into that camp. People will configure their token and say, nope, that particular permission doesn't exist. Right. And in fact, it cannot be changed. Right. You can see all that, and this goes along with, what's the supply of the token, how can it be minted, how can it be burned. Right. We can show all that kind of stuff right in the wallet because it's all part of the configuration. And then you layer on top of that the other stuff, like we're going to be establishing some metadata standards that can kind of declare, hey, this is the purpose of this badge, or this token. This token is associated with this DApp, and have some kind of verification so you know this is actually the LP token from this particular app. There's some clever stuff we're doing there.
And we saw some of this in the demo as well during RadFi, right, where we had your ticket showed you not only that it was the Mets, the Mavericks game, what seats you had, like when the game was, and like the graphical art associated with the NFT. You had LP tokens as a separate tab, which enabled you to see what your liquidity pool tokens were, and also some more information about them, what apps they were associated with. So all of this stuff, making it really easy, once you have native assets on the ledger, this ability to create contextual awareness in a wallet around what you own is just becomes so much more easy.
And it's just, it's subtle until you're doing it in testing and going, this just feels so much better than just this assortment of random addresses, or there's a 4-character identifier for it, but that's all I know.
We had multiple people in the wallet testing they would look at the NFT section. It was such a simple thing, but they would be scrolling through this and they're like, the kind of feedback we got was that people placed a higher value on the NFTs because they could see everything about it in the wallet. Right. It was like, it's like, oh, this is like, it felt more valuable and real. It didn't feel like, okay, I've got this NFT, but if I have to go to this other website, it's like, I don't totally understand how much of that is actually on the thing I own and how much of that is just the website telling me stuff. But when the wallet could show you everything, I mean, you know, for someone who wants to issue NFTs or build an application, this should be a very encouraging thing for you, that when the wallet can show you this stuff, the things you create will be more valuable to people because they feel like they really own them.
Yeah, I mean, it is such a just the feeling of seeing your NFTs in your wallet, but like it not having to have some special integration of that particular NFT is so big. So like, do you think that other people, like now this wallet idea or vision has come out, it's obviously there's some really interesting stuff on it. Like, are we going to see this on other platforms?
I will say that I feel very deeply for my brother chief technology officers in other places who are all going to have the CEO go or the CMO go, we absolutely have to have this wallet. Let's get to work on it.
Right. And they hand it to the wallet team. Hey, wallet team, go make it happen.
Go do this. Right? And those poor people will have to sit and say, this is impossible for the following 7 reasons that we don't have this.
Or you can hack it, but the hacking of it, you've got to do so much stuff behind the scenes.
You'll get a little bit, right? I mean, this is so much of this, what the wallet does is because of capabilities of the platform.
Right.
I mean, you can feel this like really acutely. I felt this recently when I was checking out, like Sui has a big thing. One of their big differentiators they say is, oh, you can see what it is you're signing.
Right.
And I was like, oh, well, that's really a thing that we're very aggressively working on. Let's go see how they did it. And because of the platform limitations, basically, instead of signing a hash, you're seeing, oh, you're calling Uniswap with the following parameters.
So?
Great. I guess that's better than what I had, but that's not exactly what's going to happen. We're just miles apart on that kind of stuff.
Right.
So there's going to be a lot of hard conversations in a lot of hard places of, why can't we have this wallet?
So obviously, you know, safety and confidence was part of what you were designing. So what next? Like you were saying mobile first, right? Mobile first is what the platform is. But it'd be great if you could dive into a little bit about the Wallet Connect feature as well.
I think, I mean, it being based on WebRTC is the big thing, with that basically that it is peer-to-peer.
Right.
That it is, you aren't relaying everything through some entity. And it's one of these things where you set it and forget it, right? Basically, you'll go through you want to describe the pairing experience a bit?
Yeah, I mean, there's sort of there's initial setup here where there is a browser extension involved in this, but it's not your wallet.
Right.
And it basically operates the way a browser extension is intended to work.
Right.
This is just a little helper thing that always sits in the background.
Right.
You install it, it basically does nothing. All it does is it's initially going to pop up a QR code. You're going to scan that QR code with your phone.
Right.
And basically what this is, it's telling them about each other.
Right.
You're saying like, hey, this is my browser. I've installed this thing on here.
Right.
The wallet now knows about it. Now in the future, now you never have to think about that browser extension again. Now, whenever you've pulled up a dApp and you say you want to log in or you want to do a transaction, it will immediately, the browser extension will immediately try to establish that WebRTC connection with the phone. As soon as you open up the phone app, it will try to make the other half of the connection. They connect peer-to-peer.
Right.
That QR process also established the encryption key that you use. So you have an end-to-end encrypted connection, and it just kind of works like magic at that point.
Right.
If you have 3 different computers that you want to do DeFi on, all right, you just do a different browser extension install in each one of them.
Right.
You scan each one of their QR codes. You can connect freely between all of them.
Right, but crucially, you have all of the interactions on your desktop when you want it, right? You've got your user interface, you set up the swap, you click swap, and then the hook, basically, that's all the little browser interface is doing. The little extension is doing is going, oh, I need to pass that over to the wallet.
Right.
You'll get
now we move to wallet.
Get
screen.
a notification on your wallet. You review the transaction manifest. You see all the things that are being asked to be done. You confirm it. It hands it back, and then the thing finishes on your desktop. But in terms of an experience, it's just so connected and together.
Just to point out, it actually does finish on your phone, and that your phone will do the submission to the network.
Right.
But it passes data back saying, hey, here was the ultimate transaction ID, and you can now go have the info you need to go figure out what happened with that transaction.
Right. And the thing that I sort of love about that model, and I wouldn't necessarily recommend this, but you could go on a completely public computer with that extension.
Yeah, sure.
Because you connect your phone. You're not sharing anything.
It's just passing that message of here's the manifest we'd like you to deal with and sign.
Right.
So no, you could completely do that.
So you go to cyber cafe, go and use some desktop things. I mean, like, this is sounding really old.
This is one of the exact scenarios we discussed.
Right.
Was this
Right.
to make sure that was a thing that you'd be careful to think through before you did it. Should I be doing this? And like, no, we could make that where all the sensitive things happen on your phone.
Right.
And of course, if you don't even want to involve a desktop browser, if you want to do everything on your phone for mobile pages, that all works too, of course.
Right. So you can also do it from Safari or whatever on your phone,
and it'll
and
pass
it just
you back
passes
and forth
it
accordingly.
passes you back and forth. I also like this idea of, like, if I'm at a friend's house and I want to be playing like a Web3 game or a metaverse game or something like that, just the ability to connect, or I want to be watching something, I've got some Web3 subscription to some new film service that uses this basis, just being able to log onto the TV via QR code and then control it. Like, it's all just so easy to connect anything to anything as a result of that basis. It's really, really
that framework is going to allow us to do a lot of really interesting things in the future. Like the thing we showed in the demo of Russ proposing a transaction to me and then me providing the extra signature. It's like, the first version of Radix Connect is going to be, dap on your web page, connect to your phone.
Right.
But once we have this ability of establishing a connection and being able to receive stuff and pass a response back and do that peer-to-peer, it opens up a lot of really interesting things for the future.
So, simple question.
Yeah.
Is it good? Is the connection good?
It's excellent.
Is
it's
it
not good.
Is it fast?
It is excellent.
Does it
Yes, it is.
Yeah. Okay.
This is what I'm saying. In testing it, it vastly outperformed expectations, and we had quite high expectations.
Right.
It really is just, nope, it always just works.
Yeah.
My first test of this is I was in some hotel room on the other side of the world and was saying, okay, like I'm on a call with somebody and so like, all right, you pick up one side of the connection.
Obviously this will fail.
Right, exactly. It's like I was going like through a VPN, through a weird internet connection, then another country, and it's like, yep, just connected and worked. I was like, how did that happen? This was the first test. This is the point where we're supposed to discover the problems so we can fix them.
It always reminds me of the saying. I love the saying. Any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. Right. Mm-hmm. And it's just like when it just works, you're just like, oh, this is so good. And like things are getting so good that it's actually, I think it's more frustrating when things don't work.
Right.
Well.
You're more acutely aware of. I feel like this should not be a problem anymore.
Yeah, exactly. So. Like we've talked a lot about how we've achieved this phone, this wallet, and how we've researched it. And occasionally we mention this thing called personas. What is a persona? Like, just explain it to me basically.
It's an on-ledger identity. I mean, it's an on-ledger identity. That's what it is.
Right, but does that mean that like people can see my personas on Ledger?
No. I mean, you can first off, what it is not is something like, oh, here's my first and last name encrypted on Ledger.
Right.
It is not that.
Right.
It's the touch point for those things. Right?
That's what it sounds like. Right?
Okay. Yeah, right. Don't worry about it being you have all this encrypted information
Okay.
on Ledger. It is not that. You could think of it as it's just something that your wallet is aware of. There's this set of data associated with this persona.
Right.
And in the event that you say, I want to, perform a login action somewhere. That's something that the third party can go say, okay, I can go look at the address of that identity. I can see what proof I'm expecting, and can check that against the proof that was provided by the wallet, and then say, okay, you are who you say. I will file that as like my unique user ID in my system if I want to. And then the phone can now say, okay, or the app can say, I would like to also know your shipping address because I need to send you something. Mm-hmm. And you get the chance to say, yes, I will share the shipping address associated with that persona. And these things have an association so that it's convenient if you want to have a few like alter egos, like you have your throwaway one that all the information is nonsense that you just use, one that might have my real shipping address, that sort of thing, or I might have, I would like different identities, different places. All that is totally in your control.
Yeah, so like you're saying that, but I'm not sure where all of this stuff is living. So like, where's my shipping address living? And like, how am I not identifiable based on the thing that's on Ledger? Like, what is the app that I'm interacting with storing? And like, what have I got? What am I controlling? And what's the app controlling?
So that actual information, like what is your address? that is stored on your phone. This was another reason for it being
mobile. As in my physical address, my postal address.
Whatever information you decided to associate with the persona, email address, whatever it is.
Right.
Phones already have a nice built-in backup solution.
Right.
So this well, what if all my shipping address gets lost if I lost my phone? Well, did you have iCloud backup on? It wasn't lost.
Right.
Now, in the event you don't have those things and you don't choose to export it, well, then yes, your shipping address information could be lost. Presumably, that's also up here, so that's an inconvenience, not a big problem that your shipping address was lost. You didn't lose that link to the ledger for this identity if you have some website that cares about it, because that's recoverable the way your account is.
Right, so the thing that's on ledger is the ability for me to prove a unique thing.
Right, I am the controller of this identity.
I am the controller of this identity. So you're basically going, when you connect to a website, it goes with Radix Connect, or with is it it's not Radix Connect. What do you connect with to a website?
Yeah, Radix Connect. Yeah.
Okay. When you connect to a website with Radix Connect, and it goes, hey, what would you like me to call you? What's your persona? Then the persona is me just basically saying to the website, I'm going to prove myself every time with this particular identifier.
If the website's interested in that. It may be, like a Uniswap might say, just give me an account address. I don't care if you don't want to tell me anything else.
Right.
If you don't even want to have a persona, just pick an account from your list of accounts.
Right.
I don't need to know anything else.
But if I want to log into a game, right, and the game wants to store some metadata about me, and the game wants to call me something, so I'm sort of like, I don't know, run and hide or whatever my username is. And so when I connect, it's like, oh, hello, run and hide. Great for you to be connected. But all of the information that is extra from just the sort of like completely anonymous, unique identifier, all of that information is on my phone.
Right. Yeah, the on-ledger part is specifically intended to replace the typical email address and password part of it.
Right.
So it's like, I need to be able to go to a website and uniquely prove that I am who I say I am.
Right.
And so the name and password thing was sort of a simple way of doing that. The email address indicates who you claim to be,
right,
and the password is a piece of information that proves that you are the person that actually is doing it, because they've written down your password, they compare those. Great, oh, that's right, you're the person who knows that password. But of course we know that's really terrible for security because everyone uses their name of their dog or whatever or loses it and so forth. So the whole industry has been trying to get rid of passwords, and there's this passkeys thing that Apple has signed onto, and Google and some others, which is a very clever system in many ways, and actually has some similarities to what we're doing with personas, but with a critical difference. The basic idea of replacing this is that a signature from a private key can be used to replace that password. Basically, the public key is the identifier, like this is who I say I am, and only the holder of that private key can sign what's called a challenge that you pass back to the website, and the website looks at that and goes, okay, I can look at that signature and say, yes, only the holder of the private key that corresponds to this public key could have signed this thing. So this is a really clever thing, and you kind of wonder, well, why haven't we been doing that for a long time? Well, the difficulty is, like, where does that private key go, and how do you keep it safe?
Right.
And this is the critical thing. And so passkeys, like, there's this thing called WebAuthn and the FIDO3 Alliance and so forth. They've been working on this for like a decade. And it's been this has always been the holdback of like, what happens if you lose that?
Right.
And they keep coming up with proposals like, no one's going to do that. It's too hard to use. No, that's too hard to use.
Right.
And finally, the one they came to finally is Apple goes, look, we'll just hold the private keys for everybody. You'll just back it up to iCloud. If you lose your phone, we'll just load the private key back onto your new phone. Solves the problem, but not particularly decentralized. Like, I don't think all of us are happy with this idea that Apple controls whether, like every website you log into, this is the vision, is that every website you log into is going to be controlled by a password that Apple's holding on your behalf.
Right.
The wonderful tool that we have to work with is we started thinking about this problem because in Web3, we're like, look, Web3 isn't just going to be throwing account addresses around.
Right.
Like,
people aren't going to want to just be anonymous.
Right. The idea of logging in isn't going away. Like you said, if there's a game I connect to, it's like it needs to know who I am, and it's going to associate some data with me and things like that.
Right. And my friends lists, the players I want to play with, whatever.
Logging into social media, like whatever it is, right? And so what we realized was like, well, we have an on-ledger mechanism to do backup, to basically recover access to private keys essentially through smart accounts.
Right.
And so essentially what we did is we said, well, we're going to do something called an identity, which is virtually identical to a smart account, except it doesn't hold tokens. And it has the same mechanisms, the same access control that we use to do multi-factor control of this sort of thing. We also apply that to this identity component. And ultimately, that identity component holds a public key. And that public key is the thing that is your login. So all you're doing when you're connecting the website is going, hey, I am the address of that identity on the Radix ledger. And I am the only one that can produce the signature to do that. And if I lose access to my phone number, once again, I can change that. I can, I got to change to a new set of factors and so forth, and then recover access to that component and change that public key in the end. And so what this means is that I don't have to back up this single private key, because there is no single private key, just like we did with accounts. You don't need to back up a private key with Apple, because if you lose that private key, you can use the multi-factor scheme on Ledger to change the key.
And this is such a, like, for me, the way I differentiate the two, and it takes a little bit of time because it's subtle, is personas is who I am, and accounts is what I own.
And they're two different things.
And they are two different things. And right now, what Web3 does is it mashes those two things together. It says what you own is who you are. And like, who I am can be several different people. I can have multiple logins to the same services. I can be different people. And what I own may actually be multiple accounts. Like if I'm managing my savings investments accounts, I may have 3 or 4 different accounts, but I am just that one persona and that one person. I want a personalized experience on the website when I log in. But then I want to be able to control the accounts that are associated with that persona and control which of my accounts are associated with that persona, and then associate what my identity is when I log into those services. But I think personas go so much deeper than that. I think like that we could talk for hours on just personas,
It's like the first layer. This is the thing where once we have that basic system of like, I can prove who I am, I can identify myself in some meaningful way. This allows us to layer on the other stuff where the wallet can hold pieces of personal information. That stuff isn't stored on Ledger, but the wallet keeps track of like, oh, when I'm connecting to this website, I'm telling them about this address, and I know that I associate these pieces of information from it. No one else needs to know about that. It's just the wallet maintaining. It's basically it's keeping track of your own privacy. It's keeping track of what are your preferences. You say, when you connect to this website, you prefer to be this person and you prefer to share these pieces of information. The wallet manages it for you, and it uses the on-ledger mechanism just to be able to prove that you are who you say you are.
The idea I love on this, just as like a really simple like explanation, is like one of my personas is my shopping persona, and I have my shipping address associated with it. And then I'm walking down the street and there's a billboard for a jacket that I really love, and I can scan it and I can pay and share my shipping information instantaneously in that transaction with that interaction. And so like this idea of having being able to prove the abstract concept of an identity, and then associate that with information that I control in my wallet, can go all the way to verifiable credentials, can go all the way to health data and private data in a way that you are in control of what you share and what you don't, who you are, what you represent, every login, and this idea of being able to compartmentalize those into different levels of privacy and security. I think that is just such a powerful idea, and it starts with such a simple building block.
And there's something else I love about it from a developer's point of view, because we're all kind of sick of this notion of websites aggregating huge amounts of data on us and so forth. And the difficult thing is, in some sense, we can't stop them, because we have to share information with companies so we can do business, and we can't stop them from recording that. I think part of the problem, though, is that there's an expectation of it now, because they have to do it. If they have to do it to deliver a good user experience. Like if I'm interacting with Amazon, every time I buy something, I don't have to re-enter my shipping address and re-enter my credit card information, all that kind of stuff for that order. So the only way they can provide the good user experience is to store that stuff in their database. Well, once that information is in their database, now people in other parts of the business start going, hey, that's really useful data. Maybe we should consider monetizing that, using that for other stuff, right? What we do is with the wallet is we give the tool for a good actor to behave well. A DApp developer can say, look, I need this piece of information from you because I need it for this very specific purpose. Tell me about it right now. I will use it for that purpose. and I don't need it after that. I won't put it in my database because I know that I can provide the good user experience. Because next time I need it, you've already given me the permission, and the wallet will just give it to me again.
Just quietly resupply it.
Yeah, just every time I need it to be like, wallet goes, oh yeah. My user has told me it's cool to send that to you. I'll give it to you. In fact, I'll give you the latest version of it because maybe I changed my address. So it's more for the developer, it's more convenient for them. It's less they have to do. And it also doesn't mean that, particularly for the startup developer, it doesn't mean that they're automatically ingesting this personal information, which becomes this radioactive GDPR payload in their business they have to deal with, where it's like now all of a sudden they have to hire a compliance team to manage this data. They don't have to deal with all that stuff. And so it gives a good actor the opportunity to make this a competitive advantage to say, hey, we're a brand new Web3 application on Radix. We do not store your personal information because we don't need to. And the user experience is still great.
But can still deliver that personalized user experience. I suppose my last question on this is, this all sounds great, but does it not make the wallet experience more complicated? Now we've added all of these things.
It's vastly more complicated to talk about than it is to just use it.
Yes.
And on this one, we absolutely have the user testing to prove it. When it's in front of you, it all just makes sense. It's trying to go, what are all these layered systems? It's only because you're actively trying to break it down that this seems, you have to get your head around a lot of things. Or when it's in front of you, just like Instagram on the phone, it just does what you expect.
Like, I don't know where I picked this up, but good user experience is like a swan swimming upstream. It looks like, if you look at the surface, it's elegant and smooth, and it's something you can appreciate. And just below the surface, there's all this frantic paddling going on. So the great thing is we have all these cool technology mechanisms that we've built in the platform. We've done the hard work to build this stuff in the platform, and we've done all the hard work to figure out how to pull all those features together for the user. And then we've put all the hard work into making that an elegant user experience at the top. This is what you have to do. But you still need to have all that stuff going on to make all that stuff possible.
So essentially what you're saying, I think that there's a wider point here, which is the human experience is incredibly complicated, but we have got so used to living it that it feels like things should obviously work in a certain way. And then working out ways in which you can fit mental models to user experience flows actually creates these incredibly complicated, sort of splitting trees of decisions that have to work for the user in a way that then feels obvious. It's like, the way that I always talk about it is, great user experience feels blindingly obvious. And that's what's so often so frustrating about building it, is people look at it and go, well, of course you would do it like that.
Of course, that was the natural decision.
No one did it before because it's so hard. So many decisions, so many foundational stuff has to be put together for that to happen in the first place. But it sounds like you guys are pretty confident in the end state.
Super fired up about it. And I don't get super fired up about much. But
that and Arnold Schwarzenegger movies.
That and Schwarzenegger films, of course. I'm only human.
That's really cool, and I think that we're really excited to get the Radix Wallet out. I think the last thing I'd say is some expectation setting. We've done a lot of wallet demonstrations in RadFi. Are we going to see all of those things at Babylon?
So like any software development, there's a roadmap associated with this. And kind of like the rest of our stack with scalability and all these sorts of things, the important thing for us to start with is know what the long-term roadmap is. Know what the goal we're aiming to achieve is. It's like, in order to make Web3 palatable to the mainstream, we need a user experience like this. And then the second element is, do we have the technology to reach that end goal? Have we built that? So this is what we've gone through at this point. So when Babylon mainnet goes live, when that update happens, all of the technology basis that we need to build everything in the RadFi demo is actually in there. So obviously, at that point, our community goes, well, all right, we need the whole. Why isn't everything in the demo in there to begin with? Well, it's the swan paddling upstream. We still have to build. Why can't I use
the NFCs to get into my local stadium already?
So obviously, we know the phones have NFC hardware. We know you can pass data across that. We know that we have a system that allows us to pass data, allows us to do the stuff in the demo. But actually integrating that wallet takes a little bit of development time. So you're not going to see everything that you saw in the demo right up front. But a lot of the really crucial elements of it, in terms of using smart contracts, seeing your assets, the core of that, we're starting with that stuff because that's what people need up front. We're going to be explaining all of these modes of interaction to the developer community so they can start building applications with the long-term vision in mind.
Right.
And we've got very high confidence that the sorts of things that we showed in the demo are absolutely achievable in the wallet, just on a normal development roadmap.
Right. So the full vision has been set, and we're going to see rolling out of those features from Babylon onwards. And it's going to be following.
And some new stuff. We'll figure out new things. Like, wow, we had no idea. Someone could inventively figure out this new way to use the manifest. Hey, we should bake that into the wallet, make that better.
There were things
learn from your users.
There were things we didn't show in the demo because we were like, well, there are other things, there's limited time. So there are already things in the back of our mind that we can do with the wallet. And then the other thing is, like you said, we'll learn for the users, and we'll find out actually the way we thought would be the best way of packaging this. Actually, there's a more simple way of doing this in the wallet. So it'll evolve a little bit. It'll be better than we expected in many ways. So it won't be, the wallet won't be exactly like you saw, but what makes it impressive is definitely in there.
Understand what you sign. Absolutely, day one.
I think that the whole package, for me, the number one thing is it's no longer trivial to lose your money. Both from the point of view of your private key not being a solely important responsibility thing, that if you lose that, everything is gone. And that represents so much problems in the crypto space. The onboarding problem of things becoming obvious, sort of as a close second to that, and really understanding what you're doing with the assets, what they are, and how you're interacting with the ledger. A third, I think all of those things together create one of the most incredibly exciting user experience opportunities in Web3 that I've ever seen, and I am so excited about this going live on Babylon.
Come on, this is the most exciting user experience.
What
tops this?
The most exciting. I don't know. Yeah, no, the most exciting. Russell, Matthew, it's been fantastic speaking with you both, and thank you so much for watching.